Is it a pop?
Oh yeah.
God damn, I don't want to see this. God damn it.
But you need to see what we're dealing with here. It's wrath of the Silvas in this women's flyweight division. And she didn't even have any time to tap. It wasn't a thing where she was being stubborn and not tapping when she should have. Like, Karine Silva just knew exactly what position she had her in. It almost looks like she gave it a beat before it was like, I'm gonna crank this thing. And then once she noticed, she realized that she wasn't going to get out of it or doing the right thing to get out of that leg lock. She just boop, cranked it, and you could see her knee pop out. And man, Karine Silva is a scary offensive jiu-jitsu girl.
It was nice.
And she's still maintained 100% finish rate in all of her wins.
Are we live?
I'm recording already. Yeah.
Oh shit.
Yeah. It's all good.
You should save this for the show.
No, I'm already recording. Well, once I realized that you were going to pull it up.
We didn't get an intro or anything.
See it live.
So I was like,
that's all right. We could do an intro whenever. Welcome back, folks, to episode 3 of the WMMA Fight Plug. I'm going to go ahead and stop saying it backwards because the last 2 episodes we were like, the Fight Plug WMMA, and it just didn't even roll off the tongue. So I guess WMMA Fight Plug doesn't roll off a whole lot better either. But hey, we're not going to let it get us down. We're not going to let the fact that the music that you chose for the second episode's intro got copyright stricken. I don't even know what the term is for it. It's still up, obviously. I think.
Yeah.
Well, you know what?
That was a free use song too.
Since the user said that it was free use. But the thing is, in like the other ones I was looking for, because I was kind of I sent you a few links. I was like, consider this like synthwavy like song. Yeah. Those also said free use, but the creator said to just tag him in the info, and I didn't do that at all for the one that you sent me. So I don't know if that might be a deal, but I think there's, but it didn't say to and anywhere in that video that you sent me.
Maybe it's like there's like an unwritten rule. You use somebody's stuff as credited.
You know what? I could pull it up right now because I think it also kind of, the title of the music was different. Because I think it was kind of like a generic title, like the one you had sent me. And when I looked at the notification about the copyright claim, it had like a song, like an artist and song title. So I think a lot of these, some, I don't want to just throw them all under the, in the same category, but I think a lot of people put other people's music on YouTube and they're just like, free use, just credit me. And I don't know if they're just trying to get traction for their own YouTube channels or what, but
I was also thinking maybe it's maybe something because like with a lot of the kind of like jazz and lo-fi stuff, they sample a lot. So I don't know if there's like a sample in there that
probably makes a lot more sense. Yeah,
could have triggered a copyright in it or something.
Yeah, they're probably heavy sampling, and then they're like, yeah, free to use my mix, but I'm not so concerned with like what the algorithm's going to pick up, because it's like how like rappers can put out mixtapes for free and use whatever samples they want because they're not making any money from it. But at the end of the day, YouTube comes to do their troll toll no matter what. Like there's always some kind of advertisements on everything. So anyways, yeah, you just saw the Karine Silva finish. I'm assuming you hadn't seen any of her other fights, which is fine because I've only seen
I had not, no.
I've only seen her like one other UFC fight, I believe.
Yeah.
But man,
she was my pick to win that fight, but I was going through records and kind of just looking at things, and she was going to be my pick to win that fight, but
for
obviously
sure
he won that in a very brutal way.
Yeah. Man, rough debut for the other girl too, man. Like that.
It's an understatement.
I mean, to automatically be put on the shelf for an injury like that. I hope that she recovers well and
Yeah, that's
doesn't
one of
take
those
too long
ones
to
that
come back.
Even with the recovery, you never know how it's going to be after. So, wishing her a speedy recovery as well.
Yeah, get well, Ketlin Souza. Anyways, let's go ahead and shift right over to UFC 289. In our group chat, I was kind of going in on this card, calling it mid. It's not mid if we're looking at it specifically under the lens of, WMMA enthusiasts or, WMMA podcast hosts. But overall, it's mid. But we're not going to take our time to go and rate this whole card for what it is, because it's not what this podcast is about. We have another WMMA headliner, and by God, it's a bantamweight title fight. Bantamweight MMA, WMMA, not usually going to get me out of bed, but we do pretty much have the most relevant fighter at that weight class, and a woman who a lot of people would still call the GOAT. I hate the GOAT.
The GOAT.
The GOAT, the WMMA GOAT. Is she still the GOAT in your eyes?
If WMMA?
Yeah.
Yeah. I can't think of second place right now.
Yeah.
I mean, second place would probably still be Valentina, even though she lost to Grosso.
Yeah, I mean, the body of work that Valentina.
You have I guess when we're in that situation where you have two people who had a claim or have a claim to be GOAT, both kind of suffer a loss, and then people are like, well, we haven't seen how Valentina comes back, so we're going to see how she does. But
yeah, I think
I forgot what the stat is, but I do know that the percentage of champs who've lost their belt and then won it back in the rematch is surprisingly low.
It's like 2-17 or something like that.
Yeah, it's something really low. So there's not too many instances of a champ losing, getting that rematch down the line or immediately, and then winning it back.
And disclaimer, that's probably way wrong, but I know it is something. I know it's like double digits to single digits. So anybody,
I think it's probably somewhere around like 5 or 6 now, because I think Izzy did it, Nunes did it. Did somebody else recently do it?
Trying
to think. No, Glover lost. Maybe it's like 4. It's a low number. It definitely is single to double digit though.
I think Brandon Moreno technically might have done it at some point in his tetralogy with Figueiredo, but I'm not confident about that.
But yeah, so I mean, just that alone, being able to win that back, she's proved time and time again that she is still, I think, the greatest woman fighter of all time.
That's going to say a lot for sure. And also, like, if we were talking about pound for pound, then we'd have to give the nod to Alexa Grasso, because to me, pound for pound is like, what are we talking about? Like, what's the situation right now? Whereas if we're talking,
Alexa Grasso is the pound for pound GOAT?
No. See, we're not using the term GOAT at all. If we're just talking about pound for pound women's rankings,
you think she's number 1?
No, I think she's number 2 ahead of Valentina Shevchenko. So at the end of the day, she just beat her. She's got that strap. But we're talking about GOAT. That's when I'm going to take their entire body of work that they've put in, throughout their career. Yeah. Whereas for like the pound for pound discussion, and to be clear, I hate both discussions. I think that they usually lead to just the most drawn out, most pointless arguments, because who cares? You know what I mean? But yeah, when I'm thinking pound for pound, it's strictly like, what have you done for me lately? What are your current accomplishments? Where do you stand in the rankings? Who did you just beat? That sort of a deal.
Yeah, the whole pound for pound, I'm not a fan of. I always thought it's a stupid ranking, and like I should be pound for pound number 1, blah blah blah. And like, it doesn't.
It comes and goes too. It's kind of like a championship title in a division where you can get there. You can be considered pound for pound number 1, but if you just get there and because it's been a while since that hasn't been a position that has been in flux, where it's just constantly shifting. And to me, I'm not. I mean, a fat MMA podcaster being like, I'm not impressed by that. But it's one thing to get there and be considered number one pound for pound at one point, but it's another thing to maintain that over time. Just like we're not impressed by Juliana Pena getting the bantamweight title and never defending it. Like, there's been plenty of guys who can get the title, but to me, like, defending it multiple times is what starts to put you in the conversation of being a GOAT or an all-time great or whatever.
For GOAT, I mean, I just feel it's someone that's been dominant. And
all that to say that I agree with you. I think Amanda Nunes is the current WMMA GOAT. Kind of undeniable. It would be a totally different conversation if she didn't get her belt back from Pena. But
okay, so if we're talking WMMA GOAT, it's Nunes. We're talking combat sport GOAT.
Chev. You gonna weigh in with her Muay Thai experience, Muay Thai and kickboxing?
I don't know. I was gonna go with, I don't know, because I know you were talking about Grasso and, or you know, how we got confused on that, but you know, when I still think of like the women's rankings and the GOAT status, like I still see Cyborg up there, and you know, if Cyborg continues kind of like the professional boxing thing too, I mean, I think she definitely has a claim for like the combat sport GOAT, but I'm sad we never got that rematch. That fight deserved a rematch.
Yeah, I would say there's definitely an argument to be made there. And
like I can't just leave Cyborg hanging like that. Like, love her or hate her, like I still think she's right there with Nunes.
And it would be easy to sit here and nitpick and be like, well, who are the girls that she's boxing and all that? For one, it would be ignorant because I truly don't know the girls that she's boxing. For all I know, they're appropriately matched fights. In turn, because you know she doesn't have a wealth of boxing experience either. But even then, even if they are girls who are like 1-1, 0-1, there's just not anybody else in WMMA who's currently doing that, who's jumping over and getting the boxing experience in. And I could think of a few girls who I think could probably do the same thing.
We've seen some go to bare knuckle, but like straight up leave MMA to go to, or not leave MMA because she obviously still competes in MMA, but to also go somewhere else and pursue that boxing, like a lot of the athletes have been doing lately. Maybe we'll see it after maybe, you know, Chev or somebody, you know, is done with their UFC run, but you know.
All right. Well, let's jump into these fights. We're stalling now. Let's go down the card. Tell me if you can or can't give a breakdown, because I don't blame you if you haven't watched many of Diana Belbita's fights or Maria Oliveira. I've went back and I've pulled up a few of their fights leading up to this so that I can kind of give a little bit of a breakdown. But neither Diana Belbita hasn't fought in about 17 months.
I forgot who she trains with. I do follow her on Instagram.
She trains at House of Champions MMA, along with Mike Mallet, who's also on the card. I'm looking at some of the other fighters that are listed as training there. None that are really jumping out to me. A lot of Canadian fighters.
Yeah, they're in what, Canada? Training out of Canada?
Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. So, yep.
Yeah.
Here's their phone number, too. I can give them a call.
Who trains there?
Gentlemen Josh Hill, Shane Shaolin Campbell. Anyways, yeah, I can go down the list a bit. Diana
Belbita was famously, that I know her for, losing to
Liana Jojo.
Was it her only win in the UFC?
Jojo? Yeah, I think it was.
Oh yeah, okay. So her only win in the UFC versus Maria Oliveira.
Yeah.
Who I'm not too familiar with. Looking at Wikipedia, doesn't have a Wikipedia page. So.
Maria Oliveira is coming off a loss to Vanessa Demopoulos in November of last year. She has one UFC win over Gloria DePaula, and then her debut fight in the UFC was against Tabitha Ricci, which she lost unanimous decision.
Also
All of her fights in the UFC have been by decision.
Also, a former Contender Series fighter that lost to Marina Rodriguez on the show.
Yeah,
looks like she got sent away from it. But
yeah, I went back and watched. I watched her Ryzen fights. I watched her loss against Kana Asakura and her fight with Alyssa Garcia. And I watched her Tabitha Ricci. I watched the Tabitha Ricci fight, and I watched highlights of her losing to Vanessa Demopoulos. And all to say that she doesn't have the ground game, and neither does Belbita, really. I mean, Belbita's kind of
a striker.
And
karate.
Yeah, and Belbita is pretty susceptible to submissions also. You know, she lost a few fights to armbar. She has a win by armbar too, but she's not like a standout grappler or anything.
Yeah,
but
it doesn't seem like grappling is the key game plan in that. They're the key to the victory in that game plan.
She's kind of a hard nose, a little bit of a brawler, and she likes to come in straight lines, and she also likes to leave the pocket in straight lines. I've watched more of her fights than I've watched Maria Oliveira. Maria Oliveira kind of is a pawing counter striker, which I don't like at all, but she does throw straight punches. She kind of has the curse of somebody who, and this is like on the record, that she looks up to Anderson Silva. She has the body style like Anderson Silva, but she doesn't have the striking or the grappling of Anderson Silva whatsoever. And it's kind of like, stop equating yourself to anything having to do with Anderson Silva, please. But I think Diana Belbita, I think she can certainly get outstruck to a close decision against Maria Oliveira, but Maria is just so bad off of her back and such a fish out of water that I think it would be advantageous for her to take her down, try and get top position and do her work from there, because as you know, I think Maria Oliveira has like one submission win in her career. I think it's a triangle against a girl who's like 1-4. So I think Diana Belbita has more tools there. She's been in grappling situations, win or lose, with better girls. I don't think she even needs to submit Maria Oliveira. I think she can get top control or half guard, and I think she could really ride the fight out there. It wouldn't be entertaining for her to do so, but I don't think if this fight plays out on the feet that it's actually going to be superbly entertaining either. I'd much rather see Diana Belbita try and get this fight to the ground where she has a chance to finish it.
I think if it stays on the feet, I think Silva's gonna, Oliveira is gonna get the. I actually nicknamed Spider Girl, so I was thinking Anderson Silva. If it stays on the feet, I think Oliveira is going to potentially get a KO win.
Oh my God, really? I'm shocked.
There's nothing Belbita does I guess what I'm saying is Oliveira, I feel, has fought better competition, even though she's lost to those fighters. She got the KO against Marina Rodriguez. And then lost to Demopoulos, who both of those I think are better fighters than anyone on Belbita's record. I don't see submissions coming into play. I think Oliveira is going to be good enough to keep it on the feet. And I keep thinking back to the Jojua fight, and just Jojua was never good in particular. Like, I'm primarily a grappler, but not a good wrestler. You're not really getting fights to the ground that easy.
Yeah, Jojua is another girl who's like a judo player outside of MMA. And just thinks that it's going to translate, and it just doesn't. There's a lot of instances of her throwing her leg across to try and get the throw, and it never comes. It's frustrating to watch.
And I guess because I followed JoJo's career, and I think being disappointed with how her career came out. You know, all those losses in the UFC, and then as soon as she leaves the UFC, gets 30-25 in a Russian promotion somewhere against somebody. I would have to go and pull that up, but I'll never forget that. And so I know it's kind of MMA math and everything, but that loss, it was a submission loss too. And Jojo is a purple belt. Yeah, there's something about that loss that just doesn't sit right with me. And like I said, when I go and look at who Oliveira's fought, it's just better level of competition. I don't think the takedowns are going to be there, and I don't think she's going to have a way to get it to the ground. And if she does get it to the ground, I don't know if she's going to be good enough to actually maintain that top control or even threaten with that sub, because yet again, I keep thinking back to the Jojo fight and the grappling exchanges and things like that.
I get that. I get the whole Jojo really, really like kind of laying an egg as far as her like UFC run and all that, really, really influencing your outlook on Belbita for sure. I totally understand. Just like Amanda Lemos having that like fight that was way closer than it ever should have been against Angela Hill will always influence my opinion of Amanda Lemos, even a little bit at least.
And there's always shit like they had an off night, maybe they were sick, bad weight. There's always different factors that play into stuff like that. But I think if it was a singular loss, I wouldn't really think too much of it. I would be like, okay, like I said, it was a bad night. Maybe she was sick, or it was a bad weight cut, or there's something going on. But I think
she's 1-3 in the UFC. At the end of the
exactly
day,
when you sandwich that with one win and then everything else being losses, it's just I can't pick Belbita, even though I'm rooting for her. I just can't pick her. So I think you're probably going to see Maria Oliveira get a KO. If it's not a KO, unanimous decision. But I'm picking maybe KO in probably the second round.
Let me check something right here, because am I looking at Belbita's thing? Yeah. Belbita, as far as I can tell, has never been finished via KO. And in watching her fights, or going back and rewatching some of her fights, I do remember, I didn't put it in my notes, but I was thinking one thing of like, even in some of her fights where she wasn't doing as well, I kept saying, if I can give her one thing, it's that she's durable. Because she's, she was taking a lot of damage in the Lipski fight. That was tough. And she got armbarred in that fight too. But Lipski was really, really punishing her on the ground. I was like, fuck, she can't get this girl out of here. She seemed dead to rights a few times. So I wouldn't I wouldn't be surprised at all if Maria Oliveira, if it stays on the feet, Maria Oliveira wins a decision. I would be pretty surprised if she gets the finish there. So yeah, I mean, but yeah, Maria Oliveira getting her hand raised in this one, not something that would be shocking at all. So yeah, no, I respect that pick. So we're differing opinions there. You're going Belbita. You're going Oliveira. I'm going Belbita. Yeah, not to just keep going back and forth so much, but yeah, I think Oliveira is actually just that bad on the ground. And that's the biggest my biggest motivating factor. But to your point though about Belbita not necessarily being able to find the route to get the fight there, that's also incredibly valid. If you tell me, or if I don't watch this fight and you tell me afterwards that Diana Belbita went 0 for 6 on all of her takedowns, I mean, I can't say that would shock me whatsoever. That's not something I could be surprised about. So yeah. But
yeah, I mean, I guess we should say that chances are a loser of this fight's going home. So
oh yeah, this is probably a loser leaves town match.
So
yeah.
I think. Yeah, I think if you're a fighter, you'd probably be aware of that. So I imagine both fighters are definitely coming in kind of looking for that win.
Comment about nothing right here, but WMMA fighters wearing that tie headband, just immediate buff to the cuteness. That's like plus 25 to cuteness factor, just instantly. Just throwing that out there. Deanna Belbita's profile picture on her Tapology page. It's like, come on.
Yeah.
I don't even know if that's a little tie headband, but whatever the fuck it is. Good luck. All right. So our picks are in for the opening WMMA bout of the evening, and we're going to move on to the Jasmine Jasudavicious versus Miranda Maverick fight. This one's going down at flyweight. So we getting strawweight fights, a strawweight fight, a flyweight fight, and a bantamweight fight.
I didn't realize there were 3. For some reason, this whole time I thought there was only 2.
Yeah. So we have Jasmine Jasudavicious coming in off of her most recent loss to Gabriela Fernandez. It was about 3 months ago. Yeah. Oh, excuse me. Her recent win. And before that, she lost to Natalia Silva. Roughly a year ago. And I'm being somebody who hasn't watched that many of Jasmine Jasudavicious fights, I'm trying to not let that absolute shellacking by Natalia Silva influence my decision too much.
So funny story. That was the fight that I first became aware of Natalia Silva. Was that her first fight in the UFC?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I remember because in the weigh-ins,
the face-off,
Jasmine had did something in the face-off, and I was like, dude, I was like, I'm rooting for Natalia Silva now. Like, come on. And there was kind of like some hype behind it and some feeling of oneself, and I was like, and so Natalia Silva went out there and put on a clinic, and that was when I became a Natalia Silva fan. But, if we take a look and we look back at that, that's not a bad loss.
No.
And she definitely got the win sandwiched around it too, to kind of show that, like, all right, like, that was definitely maybe a fight that, even though she wasn't a name at the time, it was probably a little too advanced or out of the current like fighter league, I should say.
Yeah. I could also totally.
Whereas Natalia Silva's in like platinum and Jasmine was fighting in gold. So
yeah. Also, I mean, if you told me that Jasmine Jasudavicious, or if she told us, like, hey, here's the thing, I had no fucking idea who Natalia Silva was going into that fight, and I thought she, like,
you don't have video, you don't know anything about her opponent.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess the video was out there. It's not like she's a complete mystery by any means, but I mean, I think it's, if a fighter could come open up and say, hey, I overlooked this person, so I think that would be a valuable insight for us, if nothing else. You know what I mean? I guess there's no reason for a fighter to come out and publicly say that, until like the end of their career. But
so this is kind of not off topic, but well, it's on topic, but it's a side note. When we're talking about watching videos, like, I guess I'm thinking how many, when a fighter is going through a training camp, like, how many of the gyms and coaches and fighters are actually sitting down watching videos and, trying to train around that stuff, or how much time is being spent on that. And this is, I guess, because I'm just thinking too, like, in all the years that I trained around people that were, fought for MMA and all this other stuff, like, ain't nobody ever watched videos, man.
I mean, but like,
granted, it's more regional MMA, so it's probably like harder and to find stuff like that. But
a testament to how much harder it is when you're still at that level. Like, if you go to 559 Fights Instagram page and you try and figure out who's going to be fighting on a card and what their socials are. They're just not there. You're running like a pretty good. I'll always tip my cap to 559 Fights. They put on a good show. It's entertaining. I've been to like 3 of their fight cards.
And we need to catch the next one.
Yeah, it would be fun. It's a good time. And I like their design, their production, like the flyers that they put on their social media. I like the coverage that they put out, but still to overlook something like just not tagging your fighters in the posts. I guess it's because that's not what they're selling. They're still selling tickets to people that, hey, let's go out and see these local fights and hopefully see somebody get knocked out.
Necessarily fighters a draw. But.
Yeah, they're not thinking like, oh yeah, we got to tag, Rafa Sanchez, who's, but like, yeah, for me, who's somebody who, like, we do this podcast. We've obviously kind of like, we've all kind of pondered like the idea of covering local MMA. And to do that, like, we need to connect with these fighters, and we can't really take too many shots in the dark. The surefire, reasonably, the first thing you do is just start following a bunch of them on social media, and the local promoters who do, and it's not no shade to 559 Fights, because I think the truth is that they might not always have a social media presence, or it's not a what am I kind of trying to say here? Also, I think at this stage of the game too, there's a lot of people trying it. There's a lot of people trying MMA. There's a lot of people who are fighting like 4 times and then be like, I'll stick to, being a car salesman or whatever, or I should go back to school, whatever the thing. I'm not even trying to diss people who are trying, dipping their toes into MMA
and
either.
If you've never dipped your toes into amateur MMA, is a motherfucker, dude. Like, it's a lot, and it costs a lot, and you ain't getting paid.
No.
And if for some reason you ain't getting more than like $250, $300, and you're still going out there to risk all that same kind of potential, damage that any other MMA fighter could potentially risk, but for
you gotta
low stakes. So there's a lot to consider when you're doing that amateur MMA route, but it's also a good way to if you are serious about it, to see, like, are you made for it? Can you do this?
Yeah. Yep.
But yeah, that all came from probably wondering if they watch a video on Natalia Silva.
I would
if
hope
anybody knows, any of our listeners know, or if you have trained in a gym, because the gyms I've trained in haven't. I can't think of any instances where someone sat down and watched a video on somebody. But
I do think it's interesting. I feel like I hear a lot of fighters say, well, yeah, my coaches are always watching tape. But I trip out on the fighters themselves who say, or I guess I can't really understand it. But I trip out on the ones who are like, I prefer not to watch tape on my opponents. I let my coaches watch it and just tell me what to do, which it's not like it doesn't make sense. I mean, I suppose, like, if you really trust your coaches and that's how it's better for you. I don't know. I kind of feel like, wouldn't it benefit you to see how your opponent moves, or to really like look at that and get that into your head?
So this is also going off into something else I do. As a competitive Street Fighter player, I think it's dumb to not actually look at what your opponent's doing. I mean, yeah, your coaches could tell you. Like, it's like if I had, some of my guys watching a player, but all right, guys, tell me what he does, and then tell me this. Like, it's like, okay, but like, if you don't see kind of like how they move, where their spacing is, where they like to throw those, in this case in Street Fighter, where they like to press those buttons, where they like to do this, you don't get that sense of where they're going to do it, and you go in there.
And how often they
blindly looking for some things.
Yeah.
Then you're kind of learning as you go, and when that situation, we always say the first round's data. So if that's the case, then you're okay with giving up the first round in order to learn that. Whereas if you go in there and you watched it from the start, what they're looking for. Okay, after a 1-2, they like to do this, or they throw this, or when they throw their jab, they dip to the right, or when they throw their right, they drop their left hand, blah, blah, like, and not just that, but like things with timing, they bob 1-2 before they throw a kick, They like to switch stances before they do this. There's all these things that can be seen, and
I guess if a coach,
there's so much to know.
Yeah.
But if you see it and you can recognize it before you've even stepped in there, then that just gives you another kind of advantage. And if you couple that with, okay, I know what all these look like in my head because I studied these, I studied their movement, their timing, how they like to throw, what they like to do if they're in a defensive mode, if they're getting swarmed, how do they like to get out, blah blah blah. There's so many situations that you look at. And yeah, it's just, I fucking lost my train of thought there.
I would love to get a fighter's insight on that. Too,
yeah, I would too. I would like to see what they're
because I'm sure the explanation for why some of them don't want to watch tape.
Got my train of thought back.
Okay, I'm sure there's probably a very, very good explanation that we just haven't considered or don't know about. And I could see it too, where it might come down to personality type, where you might just have a certain a fighter with a certain type of mindset where they don't want to let footage of their opponent get into their head. Maybe it's not something they'd ever come out and publicly say, but they could literally say like, yeah, I could get intimidated if I am like too impressed by their footage or something like that. I think that's a valid human emotion, and I don't think we'd ever really know about it from some fighters, but
I think
it
if
could be
you're there,
that,
though,
or like a paralysis by analysis type of deal. Maybe, yeah, because you certainly do have to maintain a healthy level of delusion to really, really go for it in MMA or any sport, really.
Because the way I see it, like I said, it's just all information. And like I said, going back to my train of thought, not that I got it back.
Yeah.
When you have that visual of what it looks like, and you know what it looks like, but then you couple that with what your coaches are doing and telling you, and now you've gone from in the fight, okay, you recognize how it looks, and you could see things and call them out. But because when you're in a fight, there's so much things going on.
Yeah.
If you happen to forget, well, your coaches know, so they can remind you, and you be like, oh shit, I remember what that looks like. And it's just more information to help you out in that matchup. It was, I mean, it's one of the reasons why, and this is again going back to competitive Street Fighter, which, I don't know if the listeners know too much about it, but it's a big thing. Thousands and thousands of players. Our tournament, or not our tournament, but like the Street Fighter tournament for Street Fighter players for Capcom Cup is $2 million for the grand prize this year. So they're playing for big money, and it was kind of the same situation. People watching videos, but then you also had your coaches that were watching the players, and it got to the point where they had to ban coaching because it was like, okay, these coaches are noticing these things, and the players are doing this. So you have all these things of information. So I guess what it just comes down to me, like, I don't know why a fighter wouldn't want information on whoever they're fighting is. To me, like, the more you know about your opponent, then the more prepared you can be, to beat them. So, but then again, too, like, I don't know. I would love to get insight from somebody that doesn't like to watch it, because I would like to know their thought process on why they don't.
Or what if you're a stubborn fighter who really doesn't listen to your coach, like in the middle of the fight very much? Because we can't all pretend.
Definitely possible.
Yeah, like I think for them, it definitely would aid them to watch as much tape as possible, because we can't pretend that all fighters are just these stoic students who are like, yes, I'm always listening to my coach. No, there's certainly plenty of fighters who you punch them the right way and they taste their own blood, and it's like, oh, it's on, and they're not listening anymore. So and it's like recognizing when certain opponents are gassed and the things that they start doing when they are gassed. Also, like, that's something you'd want to see, because your coach can call it out and be like, he's gassed, go for it. But I mean, it's also good to be like, okay, what are the tells? Like, what are the signs that I know he's gassed? Like, it's good. I feel like it would be good to recognize those things. I lost my train of thought a little bit too, because you were mentioning video games.
Blurry beans in the background.
The blur. Yeah, shout out to my cat. All right, let's get back to Jasudavicious versus Miranda Maverick, because we went on a whole ass tangent. No, it's all good. That's great. I mean, fill some time. Yeah. So we could go on and on about if Jasudavicious overlooked Natalia Silva.
Natalia
But
Silva.
I think the truth is, honestly, she could have
There's
watched
a
all the
Natalia
tape in the
Silva
world. And
fanboy podcast.
yeah, I think she probably could have watched all the tape in the world, and Natalia Silva was still going to piece her
Yeah.
up. But either
You can
way,
watch all the tape in the world too against somebody, and if they're still a level above you, it's
yeah,
not gonna
I
happen.
can do it. Yeah, I can study
You just
all
gotta
fucking
preview how you're
day.
gonna get your ass kicked. That's all you got.
Yeah. And I think, yeah, you mentioned her pre-fight antics during their face-off, and watching that too, even before, I had seen any Natalia Silva fight or knew what her style was. It really was like, oh, I kind of want to see this girl get pieced up now. I think what it's going to come down to more, though, and we have to shift some of the attention over to Miranda Maverick if we're going to consider how this fight's going to go down, or who's going to have success here. Because I think it's going to have less to do with whether or not Jasudavicious watches tape, and a lot more to do with the fact that Miranda Maverick is the much younger by 9 years and much more athletic fighter, and go back to what we were talking about, the much more coachable fighter. I think she's had a streak of bad luck a bit. Well, she had a streak of bad luck a bit. She's on a 2-fight winning streak right now. But she dropped. She got robbed against Macy Barber.
Here's the thing. I was about to say, like, is it a bad streak? Because I still think she beat Macy Barber, which would mean that her only other loss was to Blanchfield.
Yeah.
So
her only other loss was to Blanchfield, but she got absolutely controlled.
Podcast.
Yeah, no, she got controlled by Blanchfield. And that kind of put her on a path where she changed her coaching staff too, though. She was very, very upset with her coaches in that Blanchfield fight because they had, I don't know what they were going to be able to tell her in the middle of the fight to change the outcome of that fight. I don't think they knew like what Blanchfield was going to bring. Those are two that probably should have fought each other in Invicta, and I think I wasn't watching either of their careers in Invicta, but by the sound of it, that everyone was expecting those two to meet each other at some point. It ended up happening in the UFC, so I think they were probably a bit more familiar with each other than I'm giving them credit for, but. My point being, Miranda Maverick was like super upset with her coaches, and that tells me something about how she approaches the fight game and how much personal accountability she puts on herself and how much better of a student I think she is. I shouldn't say better of a student because I don't know how well Jasudavicious is about that kind of stuff, but I know Miranda is good about it. I know she's disciplined, and I know that I trust that she's putting in the work. I think she has the physicality, and like I said, in the face of all other things and variables and unknowns and stuff, I do tend to kind of give the nod to the better athlete in mixed martial arts, like across the board, but especially in WMMA, because I think that the difference in athleticism can really tell a whole lot about the outcome of a fight in WMMA. Because man, there's girls who made their entire career off athleticism. Like it really means a lot more in WMMA, I think, especially when you consider like girls who can scramble versus girls who just don't scramble at all. Maria Oliveira. Like that's a big thing. Whereas like there's guys who just can't scramble well, but there's not too many who just won't at all until you get into the bigger weight classes. Like, but I think this is going to be an opportunity for Miranda Maverick to build on this 2-fight winning streak that she's got here, with a girl who has a little bit more hype behind her. I feel like the UFC was firmly in Jasmine Jasudavicious' corner, and we're trying to build her up to be something. She's on this card because of her affiliation with Niagara Top Team in Canada. So, I think that they're looking at her as someone who could be a factor in the featherweight division. But I think that this fight with Miranda Maverick is going to be a little bit of a road bump. I see Miranda Maverick controlling her, taking her down, holding her up against the cage, making it a really, really dirty fight, and winning on points here. I think a unanimous decision for Miranda Maverick is what I'm going with.
Nice. I guess if I have to lock in my pick, though she did get pieced up by Natalia Silva, she bounced back really, really strong in her next fight.
Yeah. Both of these girls got a loss to like one of the hottest prospects in this division,
Yeah.
and another girl who was one of the hottest prospects and is pretty much a title contender now. So,
And the girl she beat, like, she was undefeated or something like that. She had a good win streak going. I think it was like an 8-fight win streak or something. And she stopped that. She looked good. So I'm not really holding that loss to Natalia Silva too harshly against her. And even though I did say that Miranda Maverick got robbed by Macy Barber and then lost that other fight, I don't know.
the wheels are turning, folks.
I don't know. I think back to even though it was a robbery to Macy Barber, I think the fact that it was that close in order for it to even kind of be there has me worried.
I'll push back on that a little bit.
And so I think I'll have to lock in a pick. I think Jasudavicious is going to show up and probably take a unanimous decision over Miranda Maverick. They're in Canada. I definitely think they do see something with her as well. It would be a good name on the resume. Could definitely see her getting, with a win, getting pushed even more. And I think with a win too, I think it's going to make that Natalia Silva loss, like I said, look even less harsh than it already kind of is. And so
it was a decision.
I think the pick is Jasudavicious by unanimous decision, possibly split decision.
Yeah, to her credit, she didn't get finished by Natalia Silva. So. No. But, Miranda Maverick didn't get finished by Erin Blanchfield either.
I don't think Miranda Maverick's going to finish Jasudavicious on the feet. I don't think she's going to prevent that.
Oh, I didn't predict that anyways.
No, I don't think there's too many things. I just think thinking back to the Fernandez fight, like the kind of pace she kept and the pressure she kept on, I think it's gonna come into play in this matter. It's a really good fight, though. It really is. It's fantastic matchmaking, and this is gonna be a good one.
Mike going on the record with the underdog pick. Jasmine, I didn't mention this breaking down the fight, but Jasmine Jasudavicious is at plus 240, moderate underdog, at least according to Tapology's stats, and Miranda Maverick coming in as the minus 300 moderate favorite. Like I already mentioned, 34 years is Jasmine Jasudavicious versus 25 years for Miranda Maverick. So pretty young. Jasudavicious owns a pretty healthy height advantage, 4 inches. She's 5'7" versus Miranda Maverick's 5'3", and about 3 inches of reach. And I will say, I think if I'm gonna do the X's and O's and talk about where Jasudavicious is better than Maverick, I think that she's a better striker. I think she has cleaner striking. I think her toolbox is a little bit more expansive there than Miranda Maverick, whereas Miranda Maverick I feel is kind of more all around, but I think her striking is coming along a bit better. If the fight only takes place at distance and it's pure striking battle, and Miranda Maverick isn't able to put her up against the cage or put the fight in her world a little bit, Jasmine Jasudavicious can certainly get the upset here, I think. But I'm still sticking with Miranda Maverick. So we'll see how that one goes.
Split pick there.
Split pick. We've been split so far, right? Or we were split on the opening one.
Did you? Who did you take on the opening? I already forgot.
I took Belbita, and you went with Oliveira.
No, that's right.
Yeah. So this one's really gonna tell a story, man. We've been differing on quite a few picks compared to Brandon and I, because I think breaking down this card for on the male end, Brandon and I think we were in complete in agreement on all of our picks. Now, granted, we didn't go up and down the entire card, but I think with there being less fights to kind of give predictions for, being that it's WMMA and there's tends to be less WMMA fights happening overall in the UFC. It's going to start to paint a picture about which one of us is more knowledgeable, man. I mean, one of us is going to fucking have more egg on our face. I went 2-2 in the last card, our last set of predictions. You went 4-0. So it's good that we have differing picks, because I'm about to even it up on this card. Anyways, let's shift our focus over to our main event.
You picking Angela Hill versus Mackenzie Dern.
Shut your whore mouth. We're going to shift our focus over to this Bantamweight Championship main event. Amanda the Lioness Nunes facing off against the Mexican Irene Aldana. And Brandon said it on I told him, this episode, that the regular episode of the Fight Plug hasn't dropped. That should be dropping by the time anyone hears this. That will have dropped.
So did you guys cover that fight on it?
That will have dropped yesterday. We didn't cover it. We didn't give a breakdown, but it is the main event. It is for a title. So I went ahead and told Brandon, like, hey, give me a pick. Yeah. And he kind of gave me a little bit of a drawn out pick, and he kind of insisted that he will hear no slander against the Lioness, and that he's picking Amanda Nunes. She's he's really over on Nunes in this fight. I will let you, since we've already heard one pick from Brandon, who's not here, I'll let you kind of start us off here and kind of give me an idea of which direction you're going in this fight with Irene Aldana and Nunes. This refreshing matchup that there's, some new blood challenging for this. I mean, refreshing in that we don't have to see a third fight with Nunes and Pena.
I mean, hate me if you will, but me personally, I prefer this matchup to the original scheduled main event, which was supposed to be Nunes versus Pena 3.
You and everybody, pal. Yeah.
Yeah,
it was supposed to be the third one. Mm-hmm.
And Pena got hurt. Aldana stepped in, and to me, I just think it's a better fight. It's a more exciting fight.
Absolutely.
It's obviously a fresher fight. I'm excited for it. It's another chance for a Mexican champ, which would, if Aldana wins, would move it up to 4.
Yep. 3 undisputed and 1 interim. But yeah, and we'll be seeing that interim.
And that would be absolutely massive. I think if we stop and take a look at it through kind of a marketing kind of lens, having 4 Mexican champs, with that new Mexican Performance Center, and just kind of like targeting Mexico as your next kind of like big destination for MMA and for MMA fighters and stuff. Like, it's a potential big deal to have that 4th champion. So,
break out the motherfucking Modelos, right?
Yeah, great fight, and super excited for this one.
Yeah, I think it's massive, like you said, to have Irene Aldana get the chance to go in there.
Anytime you get to see someone that great,
Yeah, man, I'm excited to see Aldana potentially, go in there and try and take more gold back to Mexico. I think it's great, whatever they're doing out there in their gym, but her and Alexa Grasso training together. I hope they continue. I hope that, all these Mexican champions really start to support each other, because I think the cards are stacked against all of them. That's the thing. Like, it's really something special that we have, 3 right now, or 2.5, however you want to call it, and potentially, a 4th one right now. Because honestly, I'll say it, I'm picking Pantoja in my early pick. I'm picking Pantoja against Brandon Moreno.
I mean, I can see why you would. But.
Yeah, I'm rooting for Alexa Grasso in the rematch with Valentina Shevchenko. But I think, and you've said it yourself in conversations we've had, not on the podcast, you still got to kind of pick Valentina Shevchenko in that fight.
Yeah, it's the whole Nunes Pena situation. Like, I love Grasso. I'm happy she's a champ, but if the rematch were to happen, Shevchenko's probably still going to be the favorite.
Yeah, she should be.
And if we look at it, and I have to give a
props,
educated pick, You know, I think my pick is still gonna land on Shevchenko, even though she lost last one.
And props to you, man. You were on the Alexa Grasso bandwagon for a long time. Like, I was even criticizing you for it back in the day because I thought her move to flyweight wasn't going to go nearly as well as it did. But boy, was I wrong. Can I ask you? I don't really recall. I know on Verdict you picked Grasso, but were you picking Grasso against, or were you just chasing points against Shevchenko in the first fight?
No, I picked Grasso against him.
There it is. I mean, it was before we started doing this podcast, but one of these hosts picked Alexa Grasso in that fight. So I'll let you take the retroactive.
It's weird because, like, and I'm going to get into it in this fight because, like, when, I don't know, there's just like this, when a fighter's kind of dominated for so long, you kind of get this sense, not that they're like slacking off, but like, I guess it comes back to like the hunger thing, like, you know, as fucking tired as it is at this point. If I'm looking at this fight, I see Nunes, who just won her title back from Pena after suffering that big loss. We had her contemplating retirement post fight. On that, we had a switch of camps.
Yeah, left ATT. That's very significant.
We had a switch of camps during that lead up to the rematch with Pena. There was a lot of questions going on about who she was training with, what was going on in the camp now that she had left ATT. You know, came out, put on that dominating performance against Pena in the rematch, and you know, hasn't been the most active as well. I know there's also been some other things that she's been focused on as well over that time. And she's talked about kind of already talking about like what's going to happen when she's done.
Mm-hmm. That and talk is a factor for
me
as well.
When someone's, and it's not just for me, I know it's kind of like a thing in a lot of sports. If the thought of retirement is starting to cross your mind and you're starting to question all that, then, you know, it's a big thing to take into account, because most people would say if you're already thinking about it, then the game's already passed you by at that point. Like, if that's what you're thinking, like, there's no need to think. You probably should at that point. But
yeah.
So when I take into account all this and kind of everything, and this is just feeling like one of those transitional type of fights. And what I mean is that the story with Pena and Nunes kind of got closed on that. She got the title belt back. She kind of cemented that spot as the GOAT. What other challenges are out there for her?
Mm-hmm.
You know, if she does get past Aldana, which I'm trying to think, you know.
Oh, I mean, if
you could think of a name, you feel free to, but I'm blanking right now.
If you're actually asking me, I mean, she already fought her, but let's get Rocky Pennington maybe one more win, or because it could have just as easily been Raquel Pennington in there against her for this fight instead of it in Aldana. I'm glad they went with Aldana, but yeah, I mean, Pennington's been on a little bit of a streak now, so I mean, if she gets one more win or one more definitive win, she, you know, but I mean, that's not the fight that's gonna get Amanda Nunes out of bed either.
And I do
rematch.
Think Shevchenko losing also kind of threw a wrench into a lot of things, because I do think that they were wanting to do Nunes versus Shev again. So with all that being said,
Raquel Pennington on a 5-fight win streak is Raquel Pennington. So sorry, okay. Didn't mean to derail you. But
if we were to actually look at this, do we think Raquel Pennington has a chance to beat Amanda Nunes even on that 5-fight win streak?
Nah, too slow.
And there it is. You know, it's not a draw pay-per-view. It's not, you know. It doesn't move the needle.
Yeah, I also don't like that fight, and this, if you don't know it, then you probably don't care, but I feel like they're very close. The couples, Raquel Pennington and Tisha Torres, and Nina Nunes and Amanda, Nina and Amanda, like they're all friends. So there's also the like, how much is Raquel Pennington really gonna go for this? I don't know. Maybe that's disrespectful to Raquel Pennington to think that she's still not really gonna turn it on and try and really put Nunes away. But sorry, but all that to support your point, that that's not really the fight you want to go for. Right? So what you want to do is try and put another belt around another Mexican fighter while they're.
So I guess what I'm just trying to get to, and I'll just wrap it up, is that you have all these kind of things into you have all these things coming into this fight for Nunes. Now, I do believe she said she wants to continue fighting, correct?
Yeah, I mean, that's up in the air. You touched on the semi-retirement talk already, and I wanted to kind of like jump in, but I didn't want to interrupt you. But that's one of the bigger factors coming into this fight for me. If I'm going to be considering Irene Aldana, which like I'll inside baseball, I still don't know who I'm picking right now. Like I'm not going to know who I'm picking until I kind of talk about it on this podcast for a little bit and give my pick. But
I know who I'm picking already.
But for Nunes, like she already came out and even said recently that she could have retired if she had beat Juliana Pena that first time, and she even considered retiring. But ultimately, the reason she came back was that she just wanted to spoil Juliana Pena's fucking title reign. She wasn't gonna just leave her belt with her. She straight up said, I could leave the belt with any other girl but not Juliana Pena. And that's gangster, but I don't know if that's going to give me very much confidence in her still, having her full heart in this game, like you were.
Okay. Yeah. And so that kind of is enough to justify my I guess, kind of my incoming point, in that I feel that this fight is a transitional fight. I feel we're kind of at the end of a story for one person, and I think we're about to see the start of a new story for someone else, and kind of a big mix-up in the division. Mm-hmm. Because I do think if Nunes loses, I do think she retires. And if she retires, I mean, that's fine. I mean, like I said, what more can she do? There's nothing else out there to accomplish besides just, I guess cycle through the contenders again. But we've already beat them all. So, it's just it's feeling like this weekend is one of those weekends where it's going to be one of those transitional weekends, not just for Nunes and Aldana, because I do think we're going to see another Mexican champ. But I think when we're also looking in the sense that, and this is, just regular MMA, with Benny and Charles, another sort of transition, because, Charles is a former champ, but I don't think he's going to get it done versus Benny. I know he said today he was going to like come at him and just bring the fight to him and like fucking, make him go to war. But
I think that might be the wrong thing to do. But we're not talking about that fight.
But I think, going into that, there's just something about this card that I have this feeling that it's like a transitional kind of, all right, like we're going to pass the torch along to this crew. And let me kind of jump in a bit and ask you, is it solely just because do you think it's mental and where Amanda Nunes is at, as far as like her motivation to continue and keep fighting, or to just go and live life with Nina Nunes? They're expecting another child also soon. I think I saw news of that Nina Nunes is pregnant again. So that's also a factor. How much more time does she want to give to this sport? But I do have to ask though, physically, performance wise,
If I told you, no, Amanda Nunes has no doubts, she's still in this 100%. She wants to continue fighting. She still wants to be the GOAT and fight till she can't fight anymore. Physically, do you think that we've seen any kind of like a decline? Do you think that Amanda Nunes has lost a step? Does her loss to Juliana Pena kind of tell you anything in that regard?
No, I don't think so.
Do you think she kind of maybe overlooked Juliana Pena, or not overlooked her, but didn't give her the respect?
It's not necessarily an overlooking. I think it's one of those.
Because I'm surprised her
overlooking, but I think what it came down to was that she just felt she was better than Pena everywhere and didn't really have to worry about anything.
I could see it because I'm kind of surprised that isn't actually factoring more into you picking Irene Aldana, is the fact that, I mean, for whatever reason it was, whether, Nunes thought that she was just going to outclass Pena, or she overlooked her, or what, or Pena actually managed to hurt her, whatever the reason, her losing to Pena, I would think that would be much more like of a motivating factor in you picking Aldana than just whether or not Nunes might kind of be ready to retire.
Because I mean that would only have been a factor if Nunes didn't either come back and fight Pena again, or didn't win the title back or something. Because the fact that she came back and then just freaking pretty much like 10-8s for 5 rounds,
though, that was the weirdest one-sided fight ever. She got like 2 10-8 rounds. She knocked Juliana Pena down like 3 times, 4 times maybe. I would have to rewatch it. There was plenty of dominance on Amanda Nunes' side, but she still looked like shit after that fight. You remember how swollen her face? Like she still took her own. She still took a bit of a beating herself. Like it was very one-sided, but she didn't come out of that fight untouched.
This is going to go into my next point with kind of the physicality of where I think Nunes is at. Do I think she's physically capable to continue and fight? Yes, she's gone 5 rounds. With the exception of that Pena fight with her gassing out, has gone 5 rounds multiple times. I would say if anything maybe has declined, is definitely the chin. I would want to say, she has been tagged a few times. Obviously Pena rocked her with that jab, and then that sent everything out spiraling downhill. But like you said too, there were times she was getting hit in the rematch. I think back to the Cyborg fight too, where she got hit with some big shots, and she just happened to come out on top. And I don't think shots like that, because when I think back to kind of like that Cyborg fight, I don't think she could take that sort of shot anymore in terms of like, I'm just going to eat it and keep coming forward. I think you do have to, I think you do got to be careful a little more defensively, to not get tagged or rocked, because, we've seen her be rocked by a jab, coming in. So, that's always a factor when you take somebody that's a power puncher like Aldana and who has multiple KO wins. It only takes that one shot, and when I think back to how, this kind of just wrapping up into my pick, when I take into account kind of how Nunes has been talking, and kind of like discussing her future and everything, and I wrap that up with kind of how she's been more easily hit in her past few fights, on top of being rocked and then dropped and finished in the other. It makes me nervous, because I do know at some point Aldana is going to touch her. And it's going to come down to, is she going to be able to take it, or is that going to be the shot that rocks her? If it's early on, I think it's fine. But honestly, I think in this fight, if it goes to round 2, 3, I actually think this is where it kind of gets worse. And so I think, with all that being considered, when I have to lock in my pick, I have to go with Aldana by KO in probably the third round, second or third. And like I said, I think there really is going to be a new Mexican champion. It feels like a transitional card. But yeah, so that's just how my thought process on thinking that fight. And so, am I rooting for Nunes, and would I love to see her continue fucking the streak of dominance and, washing more contenders? Then yeah, I would love that. But yeah, right now I got to go Aldana by KO. And I think, honestly, too, I think with the whole Kayla Harrison stuff kind of just absolutely falling through to hell and back.
I had to find a way to shit on Kayla Harrison.
I don't think there's very many big fights left for Nunes.
True. Yeah, that's also a big thing too, because if we're looking at it from a financial perspective, okay, how many money fights are there out there for? With Valentina, obviously the Valentina trilogy was possibly there, and I think people would have shelled out. Well, I don't know if people would have shelled out for it, but as far as what it meaning being a money fight for what is considered a money fight for Nunes, relative to WMMA, that was there. But
a trilogy when anyone is 0-2 is always a hard sell.
It's a hard sell, but I mean, Valentina Shevchenko, since those 2 losses to Nunes, completely transformed her image and her status as an MMA fighter. Nobody was talking about her as one of the goats, back when she lost her second fight to Nunes. But now with her dropping her strap to Grasso, and I'm sure her focus is completely shifted back to no, I must regain my title. She's not thinking about going up to bantamweight to fight Nunes right now. So no, that's a good point. I not to say your other points were shit or anything like that, but yeah, who's gonna really rake in the dough for you as far as what's left at this bantamweight division? Little programming note that I left for myself: I need to find some fucking wrap it up, play him off music for you. It's oh my god, he keeps going and going.
Keyboard camera.
It's all good. Okay, if I'm gonna kind of give my breakdown, I would say yes, a lot of those things that you mentioned, the retirement talk, definitely play a factor into this fight for me and give me a little bit of confidence and make me think that Irene Aldana is a live dog in this fight. I am also very heavily influenced by the 2 Juliana Pena fights. I could believe, and I did believe, that she wasn't respecting Juliana Pena, and I think that we've seen it before with the ways that Amanda Nunes has lost in the past. You go back and you revisit some of her losses. I watched that Kat Zingano documentary recently. I need to go back
and watch that fight.
We've seen how things can shift very dramatically when you kind of take away Amanda Nunes' confidence. She is a fucking bulldozer, but I think you can hurt her confidence in the cage, and I think that can really color the outcome of the fight in dramatic ways. I think that happened in her first fight with Juliana Pena, and I think it reverberated into going and getting her title back. And maybe there was a lot of pressure there for her, so that was a part of it. But even as, like I said, as dominant as that win was in the rematch, I can't get over how much damage Amanda Nunes still took. I can't get over how she didn't put Juliana Pena away. I can't get over just how bad Juliana.
Didn't she come out and say that she wanted it to
punish her,
to beat her down and punish her, to show her that she was the better fighter everywhere?
I don't remember.
And if that was the case, and then that was done successfully, but
sure, I guess I don't remember what her statement was about that verbatim. I think it's kind of bullshit though, because you don't need to take Juliana Pena into deep waters to prove that you're the better fighter everywhere when you're Amanda Nunes and you've been the double champion for how many years? Like, I don't know. I think that was a little bit of.
Maybe she wasn't proving. She got to prove it to us or the crowd. I think she sent a message to Pena
to prove it to herself.
No, I think it's to herself and to Pena because after Pena won that belt, I don't know if it was a gimmick or not, but I think probably, or if it was fucking real. But there was some trash talk going on after.
I think I'm still sticking to my guns. Despite her dominance, I still think she underperformed in that Juliana Pena rematch. I still think she should have, not to discredit Juliana Pena's durability, but I still think she should have put her away because of what we've seen Amanda Nunes do and the people that she's put away. Chris Cyborgs, the Holly Holmes, the Misha Tates, the Ronda Rousey, like the people that she has fucking put in a box. I think that, to me, there's the semi-retirement talk, but the Juliana Pena performances to me indicate that she may be starting to slide a little bit physically. She might be starting to lose her step. She might be starting to lose her fastball. Now, despite all of that, I still think that Irene Aldana has her work cut out for her. I still think Irene Aldana brings a lot of punching power to the party. She brings really good, solid boxing, and good fundamentals too, like good boxing defense. Where she lacks is in her speed, in her footwork. Like I know I keep bringing this. I was always bringing this up every time we talked about her, the fight with Holly Holm. If anybody that hasn't seen it, go back and watch it. It was a really embarrassing loss for Irene Aldana because Holly Holm literally beat her with footwork and nothing else. Like Aldana had no idea how to cut the cage off and was just following her in a straight line and just whiffing on jabs and punches.
I think that's more boxing knowledge too. So.
It happened in a cage.
I think when you have those sorts of strikers too, obviously Holly's the experienced boxer.
Yeah,
so I think when you have that, like. Holly's just going to default to boxing. All right, fucking
sure, but I don't expect Amanda Nunes to come out and recreate that specifically. But I bring that up to talk about where Irene Aldana is limited. That's what I'm using that for. And she has no wrestling. She has none. And that's a big factor for me too, because at any point, as much as Amanda Nunes isn't necessarily known to be like this great wrestler or anything like that, we know she's good on the ground, and we know she can take the ground to the fight to the ground when she needs to. Case in point, Jermaine Durandamy. That was probably the one time when we saw her with someone who had far and away, like unquestionably, much better striking than her, and she credit to her, she was smart and said, well, I'm not going to have any of that. I'm taking her right down. And she did what she needed to do and won that fight. So we know that as vanilla as it may be, in the middle of a fight or, game planning for a fight, she can go, or, her and her coaches will go, this girl is bad here. I'm good here. We'll do that. And I think that that's the biggest kind of trump card that Amanda Nunes has to play in this fight, where, because I think Irene Aldana has the power to put Amanda Nunes away. I think if she really lands clean and puts the pressure on her and comes out, which I think is what she should do, I think she should come out and really try to put Amanda Nunes on the back foot and take control of this fight early on. I could be wrong there, but I think, that's what I would hope to see from Irene Aldana. I think that the shot that Amanda Nunes has in her back pocket to change to change where the fight's going to be happening and potentially put Irene Aldana on her back to disastrous results is just too much to overlook. I think Aldana has a lot going for her in this fight, and I do think that she can win, but man, I think I'm going to pick Nunes because I would expect her to still potentially retire, win or loss, or if she continues to fight. Like I mentioned, I think that she might be slipping, and we'll get more data I'll get more to base my opinion off of with this fight. We'll get more indications on whether or not I think she's losing her fastball or starting to lose a step. The only thing is, though, after this fight, I don't know who else is there who is going to really be able to punish her for it. Like, even if she is slowing down and isn't what she once was, I mean, Raquel Pennington's not going to be, again, not really going to exploit it. It'll make it a closer fight than it would have been, I guess. But
Definitely.
It's a weird one where I think she might be able to ride off into the sunset. If for nothing else, the chance for me to be, what would it be, 5-2 on my picks when I get all three of these right and you get all three wrong, and for you to fall to what, 4-3. So yeah, I want to pick Irene Aldana. You don't know how bad I wish I had picked Alexa Grasso after she won to Valentina Shevchenko, because it's like, fuck.
Well, I'm not gonna lie, you definitely made me rethink my pick, because I picked Aldana assuming Nunes would oblige her in the stand-up, kind of like how she did with Pena and her most recent fights. When you go back to looking at like the Shev fight where she knew what the game plan was, like, I'm not standing with her, take her down. Now if we get that,
she did stand with her in both Shev. Are you talking about GDR fight? That's because that's the one I mentioned.
Right, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Then if she comes out and is just like, yeah, I'm not gonna even try this, like I'm just gonna wrestle, then yeah, it might be a long night. But I'm assuming, like I said, this was all assuming she was going to go in there and oblige the kind of brawl and put on the show and everything for the fans.
And maybe she might.
So if we get that, it's Aldana. If we're looking at it as an educated, smart, I'm going out here for the win and I'm going to do it in like the safest way possible, then it's go out, touch gloves, and shoot, because she's not going to stop the takedown.
Yeah. And I think Nunes
and
might.
if that is the game plan, then it's Nunes all day, and that's why you have me kind of like second guessing it.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. I also wouldn't be surprised if Nunes does engage her in more of a bit of a brawl, because I mean, she did that with Cyborg too. There's examples to the contrary.
Let's say if she gets clipped, she's probably still good enough to take that fight to the ground and kind of recover, because Aldana's not gonna do anything off her back. It's real.
If she gets clipped really, really good, like legitimately rocked by Aldana, I think that might do the most to change the outlook of the fight. Even though I said like she could, turn it around and say like, oh, I need to get this girl down.
And if she does get clipped and survives, then that's definitely turning into a wrestling match, and probably ending with Nunes by sub. But
I will tell you the scenario that will be most disappointing for me overall, regardless of who wins or loses in this fight, and that will be if Amanda Nunes comes out and shoots immediately and just puts it in Aldana on her back in round one and just gets her out of it, and we don't even see it play out in the stand-up at all. Like,
at the end of the day, that's a smart thing to do.
No, it is a smart thing to do, but for me, who is for both of us, who we really want to see how this could play out and what it would look like if Aldana goes out there with her height and I believe reach advantage too. Something that we haven't seen Amanda Nunes really kind of have to deal with in a while, is somebody who's bigger than her, potentially has more power in her hands, even though she hasn't really proved it. I think it's one of those deals where Irene Aldana has been finding her power over the last couple of years, whereas Amanda Nunes has had it. I think that there's just a lot of really interesting variables here, and it would just really make me fucking sad if Nunes just takes her down immediately and we don't see any of it, and we're just like, damn it, why'd you have to just go and be the most efficient fighter? Props to Nunes if she does that. I mean, it'll make me right on my pick, but
man, now you got me second guessing myself. Man, do I want to keep it perfect, or do I want to?
You're locked in, bud. You're locked in. Locked? I'm making this up as I go along. I don't know. You're locked into me. Nah, I mean, if you want to change it, that would certainly make for interesting pod, I guess. I'll be proud of myself. It's like, damn, I changed this motherfucker's mind. Jesus.
Damn, man. You know what? I'll risk the undefeated record. No, do I?
Come on, you're risking it 3 times. It's not. Come on, you're really that confident in your other 2 picks, huh?
That's the thing. It's like I am that confident in my other picks.
Oh dear.
I didn't think I'd be faced with a fight where I'm actually generally conflicted on so soon.
You were very confident in Aldana.
I was up until you mentioned kind of like I said, because I assumed the whole thing was just going to be a stand-up fight because I don't know, that's how Nunes has been fighting lately.
Okay, I shouldn't be doing this because it goes against my logic, but consider this though. Germaine Durand-me is a way better striker than Irene Aldana. Aldana has solid boxing and power that I think we're finding out from fight to fight is improving, but she's still not Germaine Durand-me. Like Nunes had to do that with Germaine Durand-me. I think the risk that Nunes faces deciding to stand with GDR versus deciding to stand with Irene Aldana, completely different. I still don't think that, Aldana and GDR are in the same category of striker.
Yeah. All right. You know what? For the sake of the pod, I'll keep my pick.
That's
Aldana
right.
Maqueo.
Stick with that pick for sure. All right, folks. So it's in the books. I'm going to go ahead and play it safe. I think I'm rooting for Irene Aldana. I do hope she does it. I think that it would be great to, especially because we think that Amanda Nunes isn't long for the sport anymore. It really is great when you get to see a new champion go in there and win it. It's much more exciting than, Amanda Nunes finally got another win and she's retiring, title's vacant, and Rocky Pennington and the girl that Amanda Nunes just beat are going to fight for the vacant title now. Like, I would much rather see somebody win it and take it from Nunes, and then we ride, with that from then on. But yeah, I'm playing it safe. I'm going to go with Amanda Nunes. And maybe it's shameful of me to have picked against both female Mexican fighters vying for the title. I hope I'm wrong in that, and I hope I'm not wrong in that regard. You are going with Jasmine Jasudavicious. I'm picking Miranda Maverick in the flyweight bout. And in the opening fight of the evening, I'm going with Diana Belbita, and you are going with Oliveira. So those are our picks. Completely opposite picks, and we're going to adjust our...
You got to be ruined after this.
Our records. Yeah. No, dude, I could end up with a 2-5 record, man. That would be bodacious in the worst way. Okay, well, I'm at least confident in one of my picks. So I think Miranda Maverick's maybe disrespectful saying it. I think she's a lock, when we're talking WMMA in general, but
I don't think there's wrong with declaring a lock. And it shows that that's what you think is going to be like I'm not confident you are in that outcome.
Okay, I'm not going to use the L word because I don't think any of these are deserving of the term lock, but that's the one I'm most confident in. I'll say that much. Good episode, man. Thank you for your insight. Thank you for. I was joking around about the. I was half joking around about the play 'em off music, but it would still be funny, and I think I should fucking have it ready to go. We need a soundboard. I need to figure out how to incorporate a soundboard. But then I also think, like, dude, how zany do we really get that? Like, we're gonna
because we don't have a soundboard. We can't get zany.
So that'll make us more zany, because I was just thinking, like, man, listening back to this, I really have to ask Brandon, because he listens to these WMMA episodes, or at least he says he does. I don't know that our vibe is very like morning zoo radio show, like sound drops, but I would like to go in that direction. Also, like, we have to go with WMMA centric sound drops, or are we limiting ourselves if we went with a soundboard? Do we just go full bore and, hey, men's fighters, anything combat sports?
I think it could be anything.
Okay, I guess we don't have to put limits on ourselves.
Edmund yelling head movement is
that's a must.
Going to be universal. Like, it's universal. Like,
that's an absolute must. I wish I still had. I wish I had that soundboard that I made. My whole thing is I need to do some Googling and do some research to see how to interface it with my whole audio situation, so that it'll get recorded on the show. Because I think I have a way that I can do it where I can just kind of pull up a digital soundboard that I can make, like, online or something, and it'll come up. But I need to figure out how to make you hear it live.
Wow.
Otherwise, you'll hear it on the podcast, and it'll be
Yeah,
live
I don't hear
too.
anything.
Yeah, like I'll queue it up. I won't just be like dropping it in when I'm editing. But a couple technical challenges, but hey, we're only 3 episodes in. We have plenty of room to grow. Mike, I will let you get back to your wife and child and get some sleep. Let's go watch fucking Spider-Man pretty soon, man.
I need to watch how The Flash comes out soon too. I need to watch that.
Both of them, yeah. It's pretty big movies dropping soon. All right, folks, thank you for sticking it with us. We hope that you were entertained, or I don't know what I hope from this podcast. Thanks. If you like this episode, please consider liking, subscribing, and leave a comment down below. Let us know what your picks are. Let us know who you think the female GOAT is in the UFC.
If you have any questions,
real
leave
ones.
your questions.
Yeah, if you have any questions, leave your questions. Real ones know that the real GOAT is Ioanni and Jacek. All right, folks. Thanks once again. We'll see you in the next episode of the WMMA Fight Plug. Peace.
Catch y'all later.